Hello, ladies and gentlemen, out there in Radio Land. This is those Muckrakers coming to you live once again through the power of the internet. I'm Pat.
I'm Pete.
I'm Bobby.
And I believe this is episode 115. Pete,
Nice.
tell them what's coming up on today's episode.
So today we're gonna hit a bit of news. We're gonna talk a little bit about Bobby's home state of Louisiana.
Isn't that wonderful? Always great to be in the headlines. I hope it's something amazingly good.
I feel like the only other one in the headlines that is like worse than Louisiana, or at least on the same tier, is whenever you hear that like Georgia did something.
No. See, it's whenever climate change finally kicks in and Florida we just now have the Sea of Florida. Arizona and Oklahoma are going to go to war over who's America's next top Florida. So yeah, it's Oklahoma and Arizona definitely have a lot of the rest of the South beat. They're just so lightly populated that you don't hear about it. But Arizona's coming up. Didn't they just gain a U.S. House seat?
Yeah, no, they
Oh
are.
my God, yeah, that's right. Like a lot of new House seats just like appeared for all the deplorable states. So it's like, God damn it.
Also, speaking of that, there's some NYPD news. The NYPD, the Florida of Police Departments, as I like to call them, always doing some fucked up shit. And then we have some news out of Chattanooga. When has anything good ever come out of Chattanooga except for when it was taken back by the Union?
Did we really want it back? Sounds like that's bad news.
Oh no, at that time I think we did. I mean, we have some space news, some damn news.
Could we have like traded it into Napoleon to get like a discount on the Louisiana Purchase? Because we're still trying to pay that off.
No, we've paid that off.
Yeah, no, the Louisiana Purchase is fully paid off. It was by the square acre, it was the cheapest land deal on record in human history.
Yeah,
like we paid something like 3 cents an acre or something, and then $1 million for the city of New Orleans, which originally Napoleon wanted to keep New Orleans under French control, and the United States was just like, no, that's you're not going to control the mouth of the Mississippi River. We're moving west, and we have to do a capitalism, and you're still doing an empire. So we're going to go ahead and just buy it and do a capitalism, and you just keep on trying with this empire stuff, and then later Napoleon died, then no one cares.
I always say, why didn't Napoleon sell Haiti to the Haitians? It seems like he could have got out a lot cheaper instead of trying to hang on to Haiti.
Well,
because he's a hateful individual.
Because he's a hater.
Well, and there's also some people that question, why didn't the United States hold on to Haiti? Because we did occupy them for quite some time. Like we were effectively Congress was in charge of Haiti,
right,
and the military was in charge of Haiti. The Dominican Republic as well, and sort of around the crazy times where, because we needed bananas and sugar, we invaded some places because they tried to stop doing a capitalism and tried to do a socialism, and now we can't have that now, can we?
Basically, yeah. The whole
turn, they got to have their banana republic. So
they wouldn't know what to do with all the sugar. The white people know what to do with the sugar.
Right. So let's start it off with what's going on in Louisiana. I'm always interested.
Louisiana.
I'm also always interested, Bobby, like how much background of these assholes you know of. It says a Louisiana lawmaker wants to ban divisive concepts like critical race theory. He also wants to teach about the good in slavery.
Well, okay. So his exact exchange, I have WWL TV's website pulled up right now.
Right.
The exact exchange between he and New Orleans State Rep Stephanie Hilferty, Hilferty. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. So he's from Chalmette, which Chalmette is kind of a middle class suburb of New Orleans. She represents a district within the city itself. So he's, he's very Republican conservative. It's a, white middle class kind of area. And what's really funny is, how it's always people who live in cities mock people who commute in for work. Like, New Yorkers have the entire country thinking that New Jersey is a shithole just because they're constantly making fun of New Jersey and TV and stuff.
To be fair, if you've ever bartended for Bridge and Tunnel people, you'd understand.
And in New Orleans, they very affectionately refer to residents of Chalmette as Chalmatians. Yeah, so he's a Chalmatian, and here's the exact exchange. So they're in the education subcommittee,
where he came from,
and this is the comment that he made. So Garofalo says, if you're having a discussion on whatever the case may be, slavery, then you can talk about everything dealing with slavery, the good, the bad, the ugly. To which Hilferty, the representative from New Orleans, responded with, "There's no good to slavery, though." To which Garofalo responded, "Whatever the case may be, you're right, I didn't mean to imply that." But here's the problem with "I didn't mean to imply that," is you're saying that we can't teach critical race theory. So you're basically saying either slavery was good, actually, or you're saying slavery was benign, that it was neither good nor bad. He's trying to both sides slavery.
I'm gonna go ahead and come in with a thing, which is there was a good side of slavery if you were the one to benefit from it, not the one to be...
the people that owned the slaves, they got all kinds of benefits from it. Like Pete and I have always said that there's no problem on earth that can't be solved by throwing unlimited human suffering at it. Like you'd be amazed at how much can get done if you just do not care about the people involved and you have an unlimited number of lives to throw at it.
Right. We could settle this entire solar system in like 100 years if we weren't concerned with petty lives. Like, it's but anyway, so this bill that he's trying to push through, that they were debating, I had it up. I was reading through it, but anyway, basically he wants teachers in the state, and this is not just elementary and high school, this is like LSU and state schools, to no longer be able to teach critical race theory. And he wants, basically the bill will not allow an educator to, well, the educator can do it if they want to, but they would be fired or fined or something like that.
What specifically is critical race theory? I was confused about that.
That is an entire hour-long discussion.
If you had to sum, if you had to
say for the Wesleys in the audience, do you want to give like a TLDR to critical race theory?
Let me hang on.
If you had to summarize it in like 5 words or less, just because I know as an educator, we have a very large, we have like in New York, there's a big leeway about like kind of, as long as you're covering the curriculum, you have a lot of leeway how you want to teach it.
So according to Wikipedia, which I'm going to trust in this instance, critical race theory, or CRT, is an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States who seek to critically examine the law as it intersects with issues of race to challenge mainstream liberal approaches to racial justice. So basically, it's along the lines of, we don't need to reform, we don't need to renovate the building, we need to tear it down and start over. Right. And specifically, where and with what do we need to do that? Like,
that's fair, because like that would be like if you wanted,
it's exactly the same as, yay, we now have a Black trillionaire. How does that help Black people?
Right.
Well, it's aspirational. Well, none of them are going to become trillionaires. And if a whole bunch of people become trillionaires, we then have a problem with inflation. So it's,
it would be the equivalent of if you keep sitting down in an electric chair at your dinner table going, I keep getting shocked. Maybe if we fix the chair, it's like, no, it's doing what it was designed to do, which is shock the shit out of you. Get rid of it. The same way the system was designed over time to oppress specific groups of people. So there's no way to reform that. You have to kind of get rid of it.
Lost you for a second there. Yeah.
Okay, well, Frozen, I will say, so what's
You're going to have to say that whole piece
over
again, because you blanked out on our end. We didn't hear it.
Oh, no.
You could be very wrong. You could be canceled. I don't know.
No, we can edit that. My point is, like, you can't renovate something that its whole design is doing what it was designed to do. You have to build like, because the whole system was built to oppress and exclude certain groups of people. Like,
well, it's really great. Hang on, let me. I gotta look this guy up.
And there was, I believe that the system was mostly okay. So there's two different systems at play here. The of course, white people are trying to keep minorities down. Racists were trying to do that, but also rich people are trying to keep poor people down. And so these two things kind of work in tandem. So between like Reagan putting in low-income housing to keep black people poor and rich people wanting to keep poor people powerless, a lot of black people have been crushed into the ground, and other minorities have been crushed into the ground because there's like two different systems working hand in hand to do that.
I like to call it intersectional. I like to call it intersectional fuckery. Is that you're being fucked in like multiple directions because of where you were born or like the color of your skin.
Yeah. Well, and I think that critical race theory gets a lot of press in right-wing media because it is hypercritical of capitalism. Now, that is not to say, okay, anything can be Marxist analysis if we try hard enough, but also conservatives seem to have this disconnect with all Karl Marx talked about was communism. No, Karl Marx literally just talked about capitalism. I mean, he had a lot to say on communism. In fact, he coined the term basically. But originally, like Das Kapital, it does what it says on the tin. The capital. It's talking about capitalism and it's explaining the system. He was a brilliant economist. But anyway, conservatives and some liberals, a lot of liberals in this country, take any criticism of capitalism, the best economic system the world has ever known, trademark, registered, copyright. Any critique of it is instantaneously, oh, you must be a Marxist.
Yeah.
And you must hate freedom. And there was one, God damn it, it's all
that's part of the brainwashing that the rich has fed into the system to make sure that people don't attack them. They try to turn everyone into their own personal little, auto response drones to make sure that they're terrified of anyone trying to move away from things that make them rich.
Let me get my yellow no step on snake flag. Like it's no, but
I love that.
No, it was stupid fucking funny whenever Cuba finally reopened a little bit under Obama, like right there at the end, because the Pope was like, "Hey, cut him."
Yeah, right where Trump shut it all down again. So that was awful.
Biden's going to open it back up. But anyway, it's just going to go back and forth. Reopening with Cuba is going to go back and forth as we continue to have Republicans and Democrats because for the capitalist class, they don't really care if Cuba's open or closed because there's not a consumer market there. There's a human rights concern about whether or not free movement between borders and shit like that, but that's like getting really meta. Well, anyway, no, it was the funniest fucking thing. Some conservative decided after Cuba opened up a little bit, like he went down there and he was gonna gotcha moment, prove that communism in Cuba was failing with his own eyes. And what he found was grocery stores that were fully stocked. And he finally found like the home appliance section of this one like grocery store in Havana, and it was just like a wall of blenders behind him. And so he like took a selfie and he's like, see, this is what communism is. There's no choice. And it was all the same blender. Like it was just a wall of blenders. It was all the same blender. And somebody pointed out on Twitter, they were like, well, tell me, Mr. Capitalist Man, how many different types of blenders do we need before we does a freedom? Like, it's how many types of blender do we actually need? Has anyone actually improved on the blender in the last 50 years? It's that kind, like there's different motors, I guess. Some are more powerful than others, but like a blender's a blender, dude. Like, calm down. You went there trying to prove a point. You realized you were wrong. The cognitive dissonance set in, and you got really mad on the plane ride home. Like it was, Go back to California, where you pay high taxes, get incredible fucking public services, and then complain about those public services because you think everything the government does is communism. Like it just really fucking pisses me off sometimes. Well, but yeah, this is what made me think of it. It was
speaking of the police state. It is frighteningly becoming more automated. Wilder, do you want to dive into this NYPD robotic police dog bullshit that's happening?
That's actually a really good segue. I saw where you were going with it. Yeah, so the police decided to release a robot dog down this one neighborhood just to try it out. It's like a $74,000 robot dog. It doesn't look like a dog. It's just like a tube on legs. It's a nightmare thing that just sort of stomps around and is terrifying. The thing that kind of sort of looks like it could be a head is on its butt. But anyway, it's just this scary, scary thing that patrols the neighborhood. So and it did so for like a week before people complained about it enough that they got rid of it.
Because the first place they released it was
Black neighborhood?
A housing development, a poor people neighborhood.
Okay, so a little bit of backstory on the robot itself. It's manufactured by a company called Boston Dynamics, and a lot of people who are on the internet, like, they know Boston Dynamics without knowing Boston Dynamics. Have you ever seen the some people label it as like, this is why the machines will revolt? They also have a humanoid. They also
seen Black Mirror, and this dog looks a lot like the robot from Black Mirror.
The Black Mirror dog was actually based on an earlier prototype of this one specific robotic dog. Now, it can be fully automated. Like, you can set it with like GPS coordinates. I want you to go and, like, walk around this field for a little while or patrol this black neighborhood. But Spot is not intelligent. That's the name of it, by the way. They named it. Boston Dynamics is the company that did those videos that some people hang on. Boston Dynamics is the company that did those videos that some people label like, this is why the robots will rebel, of like a guy hitting a bipedal robot with a hockey stick and knocking boxes out of its hands to show how it would like self-right itself and stand up again. And some people
those videos are actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that's how the robots can adjust.
And Spot was originally designed as like a test bed platform for future robot developments. And basically, one of Spot's things that they were talking about doing, and what Spot was doing for the NYPD there, was basically it's a roaming security camera. That's basically what it does. And so it has set points that it stops at, 360 view, then it continues on down the street, stops, 360 view, and it'll make the block like 5 times just in case, it's like taking license plate numbers and facial recognition technologies right around the corner. It's a horrible thing that this little robot's been used for. But it's also, don't hate on the robot, hate on the police on this one, because the robot is also designed to do things like it can crouch and crawl as well to like get in to find like, a building collapses to help rescue people or locate them and identify them. And it's
the first thing we use it is not like saving a family in a burning building or like going in a building collapse. It's like, let's fucking patrol poor people and be like, now we're gonna have fucking robots do it.
There's more than just a cop Spot out there. Some construction companies have employed Spots to roam around construction sites, especially of like tall buildings, like over 3 stories, like big contractors. And what it does is it goes to preset spots on each floor and will take a photo of what's being done that day, so they can create like a time lapse. But then they can also, one person from a room can be like, oh, okay, they're not quite done with that portion of the thing. Like, a contractor doesn't have to walk around the whole site. The little Spots are doing it for them, so then they can like, and they have a record of, this is the progress that we made this day, and
these are still being used right now.
What now?
These are still being used right now for contractors.
In some places, they're still pretty much in the prototype phase, and there's a few knockoffs that are not bad. But what you described as the butt is actually the head, and it has cameras on the side of its body. It has a camera on its butt. I want to say it has a camera underneath, and then it has the face camera, which is actually 2 cameras pointing like this, crossing it.
It does seem to be walking backwards, I guess. So that's why I was like,
it can walk backwards.
Head on its butt.
The problem with the technology is that, like, the idea is that the technology should make policing and everything more equitable. But the issue is, just like with facial recognition technology, it turns out because it's programmed by us who are either implicit or what are the basically unmeaning to be, or on purpose racist. Technology is like the facial recognition stuff is screwing over people of color. Like, they have done such a bad job with facial recognition technology that it just goes, all black people look the same. So you're going to come to a future eventually where a police robot just shows up, arrests you, throws you in jail based on an algorithm and facial recognition and all this stuff that is in error. And then, like, what are you going to write an appeal to say that the robot was wrong?
Yes.
The robot can't be racist. Like, that's what you're going to see in our lifetimes. Like,
this designer can be.
Yeah, but no one's gonna. People are gonna be like, "What do you mean? We have robot cops. Robot cops can't be racist or wrong."
It's again, like I said, with the self-driving cars, it's not automated. It's merely unsupervised. That's all that it is, and it's not intelligent in any way, shape, or form. We could see within our lifetime a robot the size of a human become sapient, meaning knowledgeable, but definitely not intelligent, not sentient. We're not there yet. And whether or not we want to go there is a whole nother question, but that's best left for philosophers and computer programmers, two groups that are well known for hanging out with one another. Yeah.
Well, speaking of racist,
I'm still excited for the first robot designer to accidentally design like the gray goo and just eat Earth alive.
Oh no!
Yeah, gray goo is a lot of fun.
The gray goo is the worst apocalypse scenario. It's the one it's the least cool one. It's the one where we just get eaten by nanobots. I don't like that one.
Unless it's not us that gets gray gooed, it's someone else, and we discover it. Then it becomes really fucking interesting.
Like capitalists, like it just gray goose Republicans.
Or do you mean like we find it on another planet?
Like another planet. Yeah, like we find out why most other species don't make it to interstellar civilization, and that is because of gray goo, and we dodged a bullet.
It could be like the last great filter, and we got around it.
I mean, it could be. It could also be that why NASA says that Voyager is. Oh man, I'm sorry. That was a cough that made me burp.
It's the gray goo.
It's the gray goo. It's coming for you.
The gray goo, Bobby.
Yeah, no, but no. It's that Voyager 1 hasn't actually left the solar system. It hit the wall, and we can leave the Earth. We just can never leave our solar system. They snow globed us, and we can't get out. Like, yeah,
we would deserve it. So speaking of people who should be snow globed,
this whole solar system got Krampused. Oh no.
So this is actually an interesting. I actually want to get an opinion on this. So a Chattanooga assistant football coach was fired over a tweet disparaging the state of Georgia and voting rights advocate Stacey Abrams. So now this guy is suing to get his job back with back pay and damages. He's suing on the contents. He says his First Amendment rights are violated. Chris Malone was forced to resign. And so January 7th.
What was the tweet? I'll judge him based on what the tweet is.
Hold on. It's not just the tweet. So he works for
it's not just the tweet. He took out a billboard.
He works for a state, I guess a state school. So he said the social media post, it was done on his own time, on his own Twitter account as a private citizen. In the tweet, he said, congratulations to the state of Georgia and Fat Albert at Stacey Abrams, because you have truly shown America the true works of cheating in an election again. Enjoy the buffet, big girl. You earned it. Hope the money is good. Still not governor. So the school that he works for.
Yeah, I don't know. He is a shithead, and I say fuck him. Fire him.
Well, he's suing, and so
it's my constitutional right to be an asshole.
Well, it kind of is, but the question is now, because he's a government employee.
My constitutional right to say fuck him.
Because he's a government employee, the question now becomes, was being fired from a government job the government censoring his First Amendment right to free speech?
You know what's sad is, as much as I want to say fuck him, I kind of think it was. I kind of think it was the government censoring him. But
it's it's not the government censoring him. He can still say anything that he wants.
Ah, true. Actually, yeah, that's true. He just has to do it on his own time, which he'll now have a lot more of.
Where did you say this was? This was Tennessee?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay, yeah. The state of Tennessee, the school district or whatever in Chattanooga, did not impede on his First Amendment right at all. He can still say anything that he wants. I mean, if he wants to say, fuck Stacey Abrams, that's entirely his right to do so. The school board does not have to tolerate people who put, vaguely racist, but definitely like, body shaming and all that kind of shit. They don't need to, and it's just sort of, but it's also the school board can come back and say like, what example is this setting for kids that when you don't have a good argument against someone you disagree with politically, mock their body type? Like, this guy doesn't deserve to be a coach to begin with. Like,
yeah. No, I agree.
Furthering the what do you call it? The conspiracy theory that the election was rigged, which by the way, a new poll was out just today that showed 70% of Republicans believe that Joe Biden did not have enough votes to win.
Yeah, that's eventually that's going to, if not repair, that's going to tear the country apart. But probably. So that was, I thought about it back and forth, and I went, well, if they fired him and put him in jail for saying that, that would be a violation of his First Amendment right. But the First Amendment doesn't guarantee you the right to employment with the government. It just guarantees that the government can't go, I don't like what you said, I'm going to put you in jail for saying that.
Yeah, and also government employees are restricted from some free speech. Like they're not allowed to get involved with political campaigns. They're not allowed, like take for instance, I work for a local privately owned television station that's owned by a multi-million-dollar corporation, but it is unethical for me to volunteer for a political campaign. It is illegal for me to contribute money to a political campaign or to be paid by a political campaign for my labor.
I mean, it makes sense.
You give up some freedoms whenever you take a job, because again, capitalism pretends to be voluntary. It's really not, but that's the model that we're going with.
What kind of drives me a little bit crazy about the free speech people is we've established multiple times. You can go back and look at Schenck versus the U.S., the court case that established that the United States, especially in times of war, absolutely can limit speech that it deems a national security threat. In addition to, they said any speech that can be
like anyone that talks about the election being rigged is definitely a security threat, a national security threat.
Well, they said basically, they said in the court case that there is a limit to free speech, and any speech that demonstrates a clear and present danger, such as yelling fire in a crowded theater when there is no fire, is not considered protected speech. So the number one, they get it wrong.
Yeah, but
two,
what that case was specifically doing was the federal government coming down on socialist groups,
right,
who were basically saying we
don't
have
join
to
the army
country in a different, and we have to take this country in a different direction. So it's like, once again, labor rights being suppressed by the federal government.
But my point was we've demonstrated there absolutely are, whether you agree with them or not, there are limits on free speech. And you have these fucking cowboys that are just like, any consequence for any speech that they say, they're like, oh, I'm being infringed upon. And I'm like,
I mean, freedom of speech never guaranteed freedom from consequence. Like people that tweet online and people yell at them, they're not being censored. They're just, simply seeing other people exercising their First Amendment rights.
But when you bring it to them too, they're like, well, who's to judge? I don't know, the judges. In the court cases, that's my favorite argument when people get into like, well, who's going to make the decision? Judges and juries. Judges and juries will make the decision. That's what precedent is. That's why we have them. Like, where's the line drawn? Wherever the fucking Supreme Court and Congress draw the line.
God, we need to hurry up and fix the Supreme Court. Speaking of, they did bring the bill up to the floor, didn't they, to say it should be expanded? Where's that at right now?
I'm still against it.
Probably in the House somewhere.
I'm still against it. I stand against it because I'm against it because I'm afraid that if we expand the court to like a reasonable 13 justices, when we get Trump to, you know, Supreme Court boogaloo, he's gonna like expand it to 40.
We'll do the same thing as soon as the next guy comes in.
Well, eventually
we'll keep expanding it by 2 members.
Eventually, we'll have more Supreme Court justices than citizens on this planet.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
That's what.
And then we'll have to
you
find
could be a Supreme Court justice
and, like, reconstruct their people.
And you could be a Supreme Court justice. Yeah.
I do think that there is significant movement to expand the Supreme Court, which I don't know if I agree with, but
I think it's the only way to fix it. Otherwise, we're looking at a conservative Supreme Court for like the next 50 years.
Yeah,
we'll never in our lifetimes see America get fixed.
Hey man,
so that sucks.
Well, I was going to say, you know, not a lot you can do about it, but maybe those Second Amendment people can, as they always like to say.
Yeah, that's what Trump said about whenever he tried to talk people into killing Hillary. Like, does anyone even still remember that? Trump tried to have his political opponent murdered. Nothing you can do about it, folks. Nothing you can do. Well, maybe Second Amendment.
all my Facebook memories are like, remember that when the president said someone should go out and kill his political opponent?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, and that guy got impeached twice and still wasn't removed.
And also the Mueller report was separate from his impeachment. That still didn't get him removed. His son should be in fucking prison because his son saw the fucking Russians in Trump Tower. But the judges were like, oh, well, he didn't know that was illegal. So, you know, everyone gets one. It's like, no, precedent says that ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking the law. But it worked for him because he's the president's son. And King Trump is above the law. Anyway. Well,
speaking about
that's an old rant.
Speaking about dumb shit things, today's Pete Science Corner.
Right. We still have a podcast.
Yeah, is the dumbest. I want to say the dumbest Pete Science Corner we're ever gonna do. And really? we talked about this earlier a little bit. So hold on, let me just get it out and then we can shred it. NASA's Hubble telescope captures a rare metal asteroid worth 70 times the global economy. So basically they saw this asteroid. It's made of a rare metal and apparently it is worth 70 times, basically 70 Earth economies. And I read this and my brain exploded.
Worth $10 quintillion.
Do you know how stupid we sound when we quantify everything in capitalism like that? Like what the fuck? Like what?
If Americans will use any unit of measurement except for metric.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's if you've ever watched the History Channel.
It's worth 40 quadrillion barrels of oil at current market prices. Like,
you know what I mean? The asteroid is worth what we would call 10.5 septillion Donald Trump like what is
because it's like it's the size of, like, I want to say Massachusetts or something, and it's made out of nothing but iron and copper. Also, like, it's not made of rock and ice like most asteroids are.
It's also like, do you think that the copper market is going to stay steady if we bring an asteroid made of copper? So like, I don't even understand how those calculations.
Say we brought it to Earth and gently set it down so it didn't wipe out all life. And so now it's here and we can just mine it all out. I mean, iron's going to be worth nothing. Copper's going to be worth nothing. Yeah. And that's what's going to happen. It's not actually worth that much money. Well, if they sold it all at market value, sure, but that much money doesn't exist, so you can't pay it.
You wouldn't bring it down to the surface. Like I was telling you guys in the chat, it's insanely dangerous to do. But all of that shit that's on that asteroid is on the moon. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The moon's crust is made of the exact same shit as the Earth's crust. They are literally one and the same. The early Earth was struck by a protoplanet called Theia, well, that we have called Theia, since approximating its origins and everything. And it was orbiting with the Earth around the sun until it fell out of its orbit of, I believe it's the L1 gravity well out ahead of us. And then it clipped us, disintegrated, we had a ring for a little while, a very hot molten ring. The entire surface of the Earth was recovered. And so the moon is very rich in precious metals, but the capitalists keep talking about, well, asteroids are really easy, respectively, Well, in light of this, they're very easy. Let's move one into low Earth orbit because we can already get to low Earth orbit. That's easy. But getting back
that would wipe.
the moon,
No, that's way too dangerous.
difficult.
Jesus Christ.
That's the
no.
stupidest
So
fucking.
I want to bring one into low Earth orbit so that we can mine it. And I'm just sitting here whenever I finally, like, I used to be on board with this. Like, I was like, yeah, it's an awesome idea. Get the resources, and then we have it up there. We can industrialize the asteroid. And I'm sitting here going, but wait, the moon is right there. Why is it?
Capitalism.
Why rocket a doomsday asteroid into low Earth orbit?
It's because we can already get to low Earth orbit, and that's one of the reasons. So the capitalists don't have to spend money making new rockets that can get us further to the moon reliably over and over again. But also because the moon has no labor. Yeah. It has no labor. There's no indigenous population on the moon. But you want to know where there is an indigenous population? Just below low Earth orbit, also known as the surface of the planet. So it would be really easy to send workers up to an asteroid in low Earth orbit than it would be to send workers to the moon. Yeah. And that's a huge part of the reason why.
The whole reason that we are not in space right now is because of fucking capitalism. Like, remember when I told you that story about when I was in like 6th grade and we went to space camp and they told us how much reinforced carbon that coats the very hottest parts of the shuttle is $10 billion a square foot. And even as a 6th grader, I went, who the fuck is charging $10 billion? Like, who the fuck are you paying? This is it's
highly specialized work, though.
I know, but it benefits the whole Earth. So I just mean, like, who is charging $10 billion for a thing that the entire Earth should just do?
The space shuttle program was kind of poopy, though. Like, it was an idea. The idea for like a space plane comes from von Braun. Like, it comes from like the 40s and 50s, but the idea was less what we got and more sort of surface to low Earth orbit, but it's just bringing passengers. And we needed a heavy lift rocket because we decided we weren't going to make Saturn V's anymore. And they were told, well, the space plane is going to be cheaper. And then they didn't listen to the rest of the sentence. The space plane is going to be cheaper to get humans into orbit. We still need a heavy lift rocket to get other shit up there. And the idea was that we would just cut off the top of the space shuttle's fuel tank, slap some engines on the bottom of it, and then put whatever you need, like your space station or whatever, under a cowling.
To be fair to von Braun, his calculations also included probably lots of Jewish space labor, you know what I mean, like Jewish slaves in space.
He also
they're the ones with the space laser, yes.
Yeah, he also very fervently believed that some of the first humans to set foot on Mars would need to be paleontologists and archaeologists to look at to look at the all the alien fossils that were for sure we were going to find on Mars. Like,
well, no one accused the Nazis of being the smartest.
But I mean, no, von Braun wrote a whole book on how we were going to get to Mars, and it was basically kind of a lot of the Apollo program was basically this book. We just didn't take it all the way to Mars, but there was a case study done on, because like whenever we launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, we launched them at a very opportune time where the Earth, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn were all were coming up on a fairly particular alignment.
Right.
Pardon me. That was very advantageous for gravity assists. Well, anyway, an idea was floated, and there were case studies done on the first human mission to Mars to take place sometime in the 70s, right around the time that we launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. And this would have used Apollo hardware, a 3-man capsule, and the stage right below the service module. Remember from Apollo 13, it was the little cone on top was where they were living, and then there was the big chunky boy at the end that had the engine, and that was like service module.
And capitalism ruined it again.
Instead of having the lunar lander beneath that, because it turned around to connect with it and then pull the lunar lander out, you'd keep that whole final stage when it was drained of fuel for your shot out into the solar system. You would then take what was in the little pod bay and furnish the interior of that spent fuel container, and that would be where the astronauts would live for a flyby of both Venus and Mars, and possibly out into the asteroid belt before returning to Earth. And this was it was going to take a year and a half of space flights, but we were going to send 3 astronauts to do a flyby of Venus, a flyby of Mars, drop probes on Mars, leave a satellite in orbit of Venus, and possibly make it all the way out to a inner asteroid, like a trans-Martian asteroid, an asteroid that cuts in front of and or behind Mars in its orbit. But yeah, that was totally planned, and we never did it because of the Nixon administration. And they were simply told, "Oh, a space shuttle will be way cheaper," and then they didn't listen to the rest of the sentence. Yep. At bringing people to space. Like, yeah, it was so the space shuttle itself, like there's tons of videos on this if you want to check them out on YouTube. Vintage Space has a really good video on it, but the space shuttle was kind of a camel. It was the horse designed by committee.
So
speaking
speaking of people that didn't read the rest of the directions, today, and Uncle Bobby tells us why the past was terrible, you were going to tell us about the St. Francis Dam.
Yeah, so the St. Francis Dam. Okay, so it's the late 1800s, early 1900s. All right, picture it: Southern California, 1900. Los Angeles is up and coming. The gold rush is over, but we have found oil, and now oil is becoming important. And also, there's a lot of people moving out here basically to get away from East Coast orthodoxy. California has a really good climate. But we need to feed these people, and we need to water these people. How do we do that? We're building a city on the edge of the ocean, which has no drinking water, and we don't get a lot of rainfall. And like all the snow melt basically just runs into the ocean once a year. What do we do? So a series.
They're still trying to figure out today.
a series of dams and aquifers. Dams and aqueducts were planned by what was then called the Bureau of Waterworks and Supply, which is now the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. So this dam, the St. Francis Dam, was built over the course of 2 years. From 1924 to 1926, it was a curved concrete gravity dam, so very similar to the Hoover Dam, where it's a big concave shape. The water is behind here, and it's like an arch.
Right.
What do arches do? They want to stay up. Well, anyway, it was located in the San Francisco Canyon of the Sierra Pelona Mountains. It's about 40 miles north of Los Angeles, and it was intended to. The dam only stood for 2 years. It was intended to hold back. Hang on, I'm sorry, I'm in the Wikipedia article. It was designed to hold back.
Well, the thing about anything, like when you say like it was built in like the 1920s, in my head, I'm already thinking of just like we've just come out of like that gilded age of like capitalism, throw enough Irishmen at any problem and they'll get it fixed. And so like I feel like that's still around where they're like, cut corners, kid. What do you want about the dam's gonna collapse? Dams never collapse.
Yeah.
Kind of shit.
So according to Wikipedia, the population of Los Angeles was increasing incredibly rapidly. It was about 100,000 in 1900, according to the census. And by 1910, so just 10 years later, it had 320,000 people in it. And by 1920, it had 576,000 people. So you're talking about over a 20-year span, an increase 5-fold in population.
Right.
And
roughly how many people have been killed by COVID in the last year?
The real heartbreak of this dam disaster is that, okay, so they're positive at least 430 people died. We're pretty sure it's a higher number.
Oh yeah,
it's probably closer to 1,500 because, once again, everything in the past was terrible. We were really only counting the white bodies.
Oh no.
Yeah. Isn't that fun? A lot of immigrant farm labor, because again, you have a giant dam and you have a giant aqueduct. What are we using the water for? We're growing food. Who is growing the food for us? Well, it's Mexican immigrants. Welcome to the Southwest United States. We certainly hate Mexicans. God, I love this avocado. Would you like some more avocado? I would love some more avocado. Anyway, so the collapse of the St. Francis Dam is comparatively one of the worst engineering disasters well, it's claimed to be the second worst by body count engineering disaster. Civil engineering disasters. Sorry, it's the second greatest loss of life in California's history from a single incident, and only after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire.
The San Francisco earthquake was one of those where like it's so bad it's almost like a like an SNL sketch or like a Monty Python sketch, because like the earthquake happens and everyone's laying on the rubble like, oh my god, and then like
then a fire starts.
And then a fire starts. Yeah, it's just like stuff just keeps happening, and these poor people can't catch a break.
And I mean, San Francisco, the 1906 earthquake and fire. When you think like if you look at the images, if you look it up and you look at the images, it looks like Hiroshima.
Yeah,
like everything is just gone.
Now you actually pulled the words out of my brain. I was like, it actually. I was gonna say, yeah, it looked like the nuke got
it
dropped.
looks really bad. So the St. Francis Dam, whenever it blew, it had. Hang on.
Did it hit? Did it go to LA?
This is a dam. No. It was on a valley just north of Los Angeles, and so it went down that valley, not through Los Angeles. It took out. What is the name of the town?
The other thing you were saying about like disasters like that, like not only are they not counting non-white people, but like disasters like that too, there a lot of times either there's not a body left to find or anything recognizable, or the body's just buried under tons of stuff.
There was a landslide into the world's tallest dam in Italy. I want to say it was in the 1950s. I'm going to have to go back and look that up. But a landslide into a dam. Like the dam didn't break. The valley collapsed into the dam, and it collapsed with such speed and such force that they're pretty sure the people, like the workers who were standing on the dam watching this happen, were vaporized by a 100-foot tall wall of water that then rushed down the valley and decimated 3 towns.
Yeah.
Like the bodies were never found, their clothes were never found. The control room for the dam was like this little, hardened concrete, reinforced concrete pillbox type structure. Gone. It was completely gone. And the dam still stands to this day. Again, the dam did not collapse. Everything else collapsed, and it's just gone. But anyway, the St. Francis Dam, it was and this is why all the past was terrible as well, is that the only reason it wasn't, oh, they built it wrong to save a buck. It wasn't, oh, they just didn't care to build it right. No. They built this thing to last 100 years. Like they knew that they needed water, and they knew that they were going to need aquifers, and that they were going to need, all this stuff. But it was
they'd have to rebuild it this year.
Geology had not progressed far enough as a science to tell the contractors this is a bad place to put a dam.
Yeah, and it's
the land. So if you look at the images of the vast bit of the dam that was left standing, which was eventually torn down because it was just this monolith of a section of the dam that just looks perfectly preserved. It's just only about 40 feet wide, and that's all that's left of the dam. But it's like from the very middle of the dam, and just it was it's absolutely. So it opened in 1926. It got it to its peak water, because you basically have 4 types of dams. You have flood control dams. You have you have like recreational dams. You have power generation dams, and you have reservoir dams. Well, all dams have reservoirs, but one that's specifically for water storage. And there's different levels of water that you want to have for each one. So if it's just like a recreational dam, you want to have it to be as low as it can possibly be, while still creating a navigable lake. What types of boats and stuff do you want to have on it? But then there's the power generation dam. You want to keep the water level as high as possible to get the highest pressure to go over the turbines. And then, what this was, a reservoir dam, you kind of want to split the difference between the two, because you don't want to have so much water that if you get a huge deluge,
Right.
After the snow has melted, you get a huge deluge, and then the dam will be overtopped. But you also don't want it so low that by the middle of the summer, when it's not raining and you're not going to get snow for a couple months, you run out of water for the farmers and whatnot that need it.
You know, it's what's said. You know that like every single like safety thing, and the reason we build stuff like this or that is because there was a time in which a thing collapsed and killed like 1,500 people. It's like I tell everybody, like everything that we are here today, we're sitting on a pile of bodies. Somebody somewhere died horribly, suffocated, was smashed by something, and they were like, "Oh, we need to."
It's the the European plagues that came to the Americas. You know, possibly the Americas combined possibly had a population of about 90 million people when Columbus arrived. That was down to 10 million just 100 years later. Like, why is America's media and pop culture so obsessed with the apocalypse? Well, it's because we're standing on top of one.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're standing on top of an apocalypse. Like it's really, you know, it's absolutely just fucking insane how many people died so that we could sit here and make a podcast. Like, it's absolutely nuts.
I'm sure that like thousands of people died, you know, doing podcasts in the 20s because they didn't have, you know, getting electrocuted. You know, the first headphones probably made your head explode or something weird, where people are like, put this on, it's really neat, you can have somebody talk, and then like they're like, oh, it makes people's eyes bleed.
The strings connecting the cups going from one house to another probably lopped a lot of heads off from people running down the street really fast and didn't see them.
You just accidentally garrote people who are riding a bicycle down the sidewalk.
Because I want to move on really quick, but horrifyingly enough, if you ever watch the safety evolution of the of motor vehicles, safety glass came before the chest strap. And what was so terrible about that was the waist strap would stop your body, but your head would go through the safety glass. And then when you came back, the glass would either jam in your throat and kill you or pop your head completely off. So there was a whole bunch
of the steering wheels before collapsible steering columns. The steering wheel would just impale the driver.
Yeah.
And the shit part of it is, and this is, again, all of the past was terrible. It's stuff like in the 90s, Chrysler had a problem with the Dodge Caravan and the Chrysler Town and Country and the Plymouth, I think it was the Plymouth Voyager. Yeah, Plymouth Voyager, that you could put the van in gear without the keys in the ignition.
Nice. I had a car like that, but that's because it was busted. It wasn't supposed to do that.
But their argument for not doing anything about it was that, well, who puts a car in gear while the keys are not in the ignition? And so some researchers
forget the person with hearing issues,
children, dogs, anything.
They chalked a Chrysler Town and Country on basically on a test track, and a parking lot of a test track. They chalked the wheels so the car couldn't move, and they took 3 kids, put them inside a Dodge Caravan without any keys in the ignition, and they said, yeah, just go play in the van. The first thing the kids did was they pulled on the fucking shift. That was the very first thing. And you didn't even have to put your foot on the gas, the brake. You didn't have to have the keys in the ignition, nothing. It was missing, and this is the best part, because this killed like 24 people, including a lot of kids. It was 4 cents a vehicle.
Yep.
4 cents a vehicle.
Capitalism will eventually kill us all.
And I love these people who are like, oh, they're just over-regulating everything. No, you fucking moron. It's like, well, I survived. Yeah, do you know how many people fucking didn't?
Yeah, like, you're sitting on a pile of corpses, baby. Yeah, we all are.
It's just like all the people that say, you know,
confirmation bias, man. It's well, we didn't have seatbelts whenever I was coming up, and we came out just fine. I'm like, yeah, but like 10 people from your high school died in horrible accidents. Like,
it's just like whenever you talk about microtransactions and you're like, oh, I'm not tempted to buy this. It's like, because you're not the target. You're not the person they're trying to get to buy it if this is not tempting to you.
So speaking of bad buys, Wild is going to give us some that's cute news coming straight out of Wisconsin.
This is my favorite type of that's cute news. The type where capitalism plus the GOP equals just a lot of people got screwed over. In this case, it would be the taxpayers got screwed over, just out of billions of dollars going to waste.
No, Lord.
So basically, so this is an idea where the GOP decided to give Foxconn just like a shitload of money to put some of their ideas into practice, GOP ideas into practice, because I'll start from the beginning. So Foxconn chose to build its first American factory in Wisconsin in 2017. They started with the GOP. Huh?
I just said Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Home of American motors, baby.
Yeah, with Trump himself greenlighting $4.1 billion in taxpayer subsidies to Foxconn. In return, they were supposed to spend $10 billion to hire 13,000 people to work in a 20 million square foot manufacturing campus in Wisconsin, right? This is the largest construction plant in state history, requiring 16,000 Wisconsin construction workers to build everything. The Foxconn mega plant was planned to be created and operational by 2020. It was intended to turn Wisconsin into a new hub for technology and innovation, and intended to infuse $7 billion of money into the state annually.
We spent $10 billion to get $7 billion back. That was the plan, right?
A year.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was like, already that math sucks. That means we're $3 billion. You could have just put that $10 billion in the local bank. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
And just made money. So this is the point I was getting to. This was meant to be the proof of concept that the Republican way of bringing manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. was far superior to the Democratic way. Democrats would have invested directly into infrastructure, and we know this because that's what Joe Biden's doing right now.
Right.
Trying.
And it's also the intelligent thing to do.
Yeah.
The GOP way is handing subsidies directly to huge corporations and using cash into people that already have billions of dollars and don't need it. But they're saying, the GOP says, if you give money directly to billionaires, they will trickle down the economics into creating jobs and all that.
When you're done, there's two things I'm gonna go off on about this that I'm just patiently waiting, if you will.
So yeah, we went with the GOP way. This never would have happened without Trump greenlighting it. This is totally, Trump was even there. There's a video of him at the groundbreaking ceremony, digging a shovel, then dropping the dirt right back in the hole, because he's never used a shovel in his life. He doesn't know how that works. He very lightly scratched. Everyone else actually stuck the shovel and did that and tossed it. He was just like, bah, bah, bah. Anyway, fast forward to 2021. And the whole Foxconn thing ended up being a tremendous scam. They constantly failed to meet their goals, spent years pivoting wildly from one idea to another to try and move the goalpost to mask the fact that they were failing to get anything done at all. They changed the model of the factory repeatedly. They discussed building a high-tech ecosystem. They purchased a series of buildings from which they went on to leave empty and abandoned. They're like, we're going to build this ecosystem, right? We're going to build it in these buildings, which we're purchasing, and then they didn't do anything with them. They just left them out there as little ghost houses dotting the countryside in Wisconsin, right? For a while, they floated the idea of using the empty buildings to store boats. So there's that.
Sorry, could use it for boat storage.
Well, that is a very Republican solution. That's a very Republican solution to what do we do with all this warehouse space? Well, obviously the people have boats, and they will need to store those boats, and we will corner the market for storing boats. Thank you, Foxconn.
They literally weren't sure what they actually wanted to develop whenever they finished actually building the factory, which they were still trying to finish developing. And they went back and forth between either, and this is true, making ice cream or electric cars, or maybe just becoming a fish farm. And so just drastically different types of business models here, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, some people actually took Foxconn seriously and went forward with buying up land and building new roads to the factory that to the factory that they promised, right? People in Wisconsin spent Wisconsin tax money, about $400 million worth in new roads and infrastructure to support the Foxconn factory. So Foxconn, now owning a ridiculous amount of Wisconsin real estate, they did actually, instead of just buying stuff, they built two things. One was a 1,000,000 square foot LCD fab, and I don't know what that is. That's just, I saw that and I wrote it down.
LCD what now?
An LCD fab, FAB. All, yeah. And the other thing they bought was a truly hilarious, gigantic glass orb. It's like 100 stories tall. It's just this giant glass orb sitting out in the middle of the desert, and some of the roads go to it.
Is it bigger than the orb the Saudis had Trump touch?
Yes. Trump is a
okay.
two
Just making sure
president.
that we still have one up on the House Assad. Our orb is bigger. Okay.
Yes.
Let me know when I can go off, because I'm about to fucking drop some fucking fire
Soon. So yeah, I love the giant orb because it's empty. They're not doing anything with it. They build a giant orb and it's there now, and that's it. So now here's the fun fact. Those roads that they were building for them, some go to the glass orb, sure, some go to the LCD fab, but not all the roads lead to that. Many of them, and this is the most truly perfect metaphor for the GOP's plan of action ever, is that the vast majority of the roads lead to nowhere. They're just out there in the desert, and then they eventually stop.
Well,
and that's where it is.
Yeah, not desert, just unpopulated Wisconsin.
Yeah. There's no desert.
Yeah, that's the Wisconsin Foxconn scam that Trump decided to buy into because he's an idiot. And good job, GOP. You made like no jobs, and you wasted a shit ton of money doing.
I'm gonna roll up my sleeves here, and because there's so many elements in here.
With the magic of outer space,
I fucking hate. Number one, that was all done during the tenure of Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who is literally a turd in human clothes. He's a despicable human being, and if he died, I would throw a party. Which I think he was voted out. Thank God for Wisconsin, but not before he wasted billions of dollars. Two, if you're like, Foxconn, what is that? Foxconn is the Chinese slave labor company that Apple has make all their stuff. Foxconn, famous for suicide nets. That's right. Foxconn is such a terrible company to work for that people in China were throwing themselves out of windows with such regularity that the company was like, should we improve working conditions? No, suicide nets are cheaper. That's who we're giving fucking money to.
That's who Trump looked at and thought, yeah, we want them over here in America. And this was going to be their very first American factory, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
no, as soon as I heard about this years ago, I was like, fuck Foxconn. Like, why the fuck do we want them over here? Like, they can eat a dick. And of course, their model's never going to work over here unless the GOP keeps control of all three houses of government, because people tend to get upset in America about suicide nets. The second thing I wanted to bring up was Amazon tried the same stupid shit in New York City. They were like, we're going to build a factory and it's going to bring jobs. The people of New York rose the fuck up and said, get the hell out. We don't want your shit. All you're going to do, because they were promising crazy tax breaks to Amazon. Governor Cuomo was basically, when the deal fell apart.
Governor Cuomo.
Oh yeah, Cuomo was all but on his knees going, Bezos, please come back. I will personally suck your dick if you just bring it, bring it back and put it in, I can't remember if it was Long Island City. They were, anyway, wherever they were going to put it, fucking ruin the real estate, which is already fucked in New York. They were going to give them so many tax breaks, and it was going to heavily use New York infrastructure without putting any tax revenue back in. And it was only going to give a marginal amount of jobs. Basically all the people that they would need for this, it was going to be like Silicon Valley. It was going to have, you're going to have techies come in that are making like like 5-figure salaries and driving up the prices. And basically anybody in New York was going to get fucked. So Amazon didn't get HQ2 built here because we were like, fuck that shit. Anyway, that's my whole rant. Fuck giving tax breaks to corporations for moving into your place. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I really did forget that back in the era of Trump, we were constantly looking at a guy who would take every option and always pick the worst possible option.
Pretty much.
That used to drive us insane for years. That's why the podcast got started, really, because we just needed to scream about it.
We needed to be able to speak into the void.
It's so weird that we're actually in an age where logic and reason has returned to the White House. and that Joe Biden just being a mediocre, middle of the road president compared to the last guy makes him look like a savant. Like it's wonderful. He's the second coming of like either Jesus or Obama or something.
I was gonna say he's the second coming of just like white bread. Man, just like you're like,
yeah, I mean that's what he factually is, but compared to the last guy,
yeah,
that's just.
So we're running out of time. The question we have to ask is, do we want to do a am I the asshole? Because I have one, and I'm kind of like, actually, I have the choice between two of them, and I will let you guys choose which one we want to do. Do we want to do a relationship or a home building one?
Ooh, home building.
Home building. All right. So this one is actually me turning this into who's the asshole here. This actually comes from Roswell, Georgia. A family's home is falling into a trash sinkhole after being built on top of.
I read this story.
Yeah, after being built on top of construction debris 20 years ago, and nobody is helping them. So they bought their house from a company, and the company D.R. Horton didn't build it, but they bought it, and not knowing that it was built on top of an illegal trash pit that apparently you can't build houses on. So D.R. Horton's like, it's not our fault.
Yeah, it is. They should have surveyed the land better.
Well, the people that built the house no longer exist, so you can't get money from them, and it's going to cost about $60,000 to not have their house collapse into a trash pit. So Mike,
buy the house from.
They bought
insurance to pay for that.
Well, they bought it from D.R. Horton, who's like, we didn't know it was built on top of a trash pit. We just sold it. We didn't build it.
They're the assholes. They need to give this family like a new house.
Well, how does your homeowner's insurance not cover accidentally built on top of a fucking trash pit?
Because insurance is a scam, and so that's why they're always so like hyper specific about what they'll pay up on, so that in case anything happens, they don't have to pay. That way, you're just paying them your entire life, and they never have to return it.
Oh yeah, man. No. Let me tell you, living in southern Louisiana, living anywhere on the Gulf Coast, you will see firsthand insurance companies. So there's hurricane insurance, specifically hurricane insurance that you can buy for your house.
Right.
There is also specifically flood insurance that you can buy for your house. However, flood insurance is not sold by private companies. It's sold by the federal government. Because floods are so catastrophic in scope and scale, there's no way to make flood insurance profitable. So the government has a national fund to cover that, but you still have to pay in based on how at risk your home is. And there's flood zoning and everything. Sorry for people who already know this, but like some people don't know this. But like, so the insurance companies after a hurricane will literally come in, take a look at a house that's had its roof completely torn off, and look around, find that much of a watermark on the floor and go, no, all this is water damage. We're not covering this. And then the federal government has to cover it.
Oh, yeah.
Like insurance is a fucking scam.
Well, you remember
fucking scam.
Even after Katrina, when people were like, I've got everything covered, I've got all the right insurances, the insurance companies just went like, you think we're gonna cover that? Fuck you. And then what are you gonna what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it? Nothing, because you can't. Because it's a fucking scam. They just load up their Medicine Man show and move on to the next town. Yeah. My question though was, these people do you think though that like buying a house like should be a gamble? Like it's kind of like a little bit like, I don't know, you bought this house. Is buying a house always like a risk that it will fall into a trash pit?
I am all for a system very similar to Singapore's. If you don't know about Singapore's housing market, basically 80% of the housing in Singapore is public housing. And this is not, the projects, but it is public housing projects. But they take since this has been since the 50s, since Singapore was made independent of Malaysia, because Singapore was originally part of Malaysia, but politically they were divergent from what Malaysia was doing. And actually, Singapore is the only country on earth to have gained its independence against its own will. Singapore wanted to stay a part of Malaysia. Malaysia did not want Singapore. So Singapore became its own thing, and to this day remains its own thing. Well, anyway,
fantastic.
At the time, there were of course, as a consequence of British colonialism as well as Japanese imperialism, a huge swath of slums in the city. And there was one particularly large one, I forget what it's called. Well, anyway, it was a huge problem. It was making headlines constantly. And like, the British people who were still living there were like, oh God, the slums are so terrible. We should do something. So they opened a soup kitchen. So like, treat the symptoms, not the problem. And most of it was ethnic Chinese who were living in these slums. Well, the one largest slum, very fucking conveniently for the government of Singapore, accidentally burned down.
Right.
Accidentally.
I was just gonna add in. Why do we feed starving people soup? I've never been hungry and gone, man, it'd be good right now.
Well, it's because you can make a lot of it with very little. That's the point.
I mean, I get the economics of it.
I
just mean if I was starving and you brought me soup, I'd spit it in your fucking face and be like, bring me a sandwich.
Well, also sandwiches are also given out at soup kitchens. But anyway. Right. So what Singapore decided to do was they set up a housing authority, and basically exactly like universal health care. We all pay in, so we all get out, but it's more set up like an HSA, a health savings account.
Yeah. So
taken out of your paycheck every single month is basically not a housing allowance, but a savings. It's money that is then put into a savings account that is then, and you can select the highest tier, the lowest tier. There's like different tiers that you can select about how much you want them deducting, and then that goes to purchasing government housing. And so you're automatically saving. People have these savings accounts, which I think is a fucking brilliant idea. It's basically Social Security you can use right now.
It works if you trust your government.
And you can only use that money on housing, and it has to be on a mortgage. So everyone already has a down payment, and the government, they don't build single class housing. So like if you have a brand new housing development in Singapore, you're going to have a mixture of low income, working class, middle class, and high end units and apartments. And so everyone is mixed together. It's basically, it's a little capitalist trick to keep the classes from recognizing that they're being, especially the lower classes from realize that they're being lorded over. And Singapore has a lot of fucking housing problems. But I do think that it's a better. I do think that it is a better system to basically, corral private housing development to 20% of the fucking market. Yeah. And if we're going to keep markets, because apparently we all just need jizz all over our faces constantly about markets, if we're going to do that, then this is a much better way to do it, because housing is a human right. Food is a human right. Healthcare is a human right.
I did love, in this story,
like that should just be like baked into services that we provide to people. Like 4 hots in a cot, or 3 hots in a cot.
I like 4 hots. I'm a fat guy. I eat more than the average person. I will say this though. The DR Horton whole thing. I did enjoy these people, like, oh my God, their social media manager, whoever, when we're contacted for the story, besides being like, we didn't build the house, then put their boilerplate like DR Horton guarantees all of their houses from stud to stud. You know what I mean? Like, and we want to make sure that all our customers are fully satisfied. And I'm like, maybe don't put that in the news story where someone's house is collapsing into a trash pit and you're going.
It's probably just like the email signature, like my work. You put on an email signature that's like, such and such corporation broadcasting. We do not discriminate based on race, sexual orientation, gender identity.
Like, it would be it'd be like if you tagged a story about you discriminating based on somebody's race or gender, but being like, but also just know that we don't discriminate based on race or gender. I'm like, man, you guys really got to pay attention to your signatures.
I blame the people that sold them the house. Like, they need to be aware that that's the thing that could happen. They should have surveyed the place better before.
Well, the thing is, I don't know.
But in America, it's buyer beware.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody
in most places you do not have a pot to piss in. You don't have an argument to make.
It was concealed, so I don't know if anybody besides the assholes that built it on a construction trash would have known. And I guess, like, unless you went in there with like ground penetrating radar, which I don't believe is standard for home inspections. But yeah, fucking, it's the same thing if like you have a sinkhole opens under your house, like, who has sinkhole insurance?
Or if you build it on top of a Native American burial ground, suddenly the walls start to bleed when you're trying to go to sleep.
I actually don't mind that as much as I would mind my house collapsing into a trash pit. You know, I believe you can get used to just about anything paranormal, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes the house like eats itself and just like shrinks into a ball and disappears into another dimension. Yeah. Red rum.
Why were you late? Why were you late to work today? My house fucking. You know what? I don't even want to talk about it. This is Dr. Horton's fault. Dr. Horton would like you to know that we guarantee all of our houses built on Indian burial grounds from stud to stud. All right, guys, that's our show. Pat, hit him. Pat, Wild, hit him with the socials, and then we'll talk about what we want to plug.
Pat, no, I know about Pat. Anyway, it's the socials. So if you'd like to contact us, you can do so at Those Muckrakers on Twitter. You can email us at thosemuckrakers@gmail.com. You can find our stuff on iTunes, Sketcher, YouTube, all over the place. The video's on YouTube, so check it out there. If you're listening to this on iTunes, there's video now. There has been for like a couple months, 2 months, 3.
Yeah, watch our videos.
See our wonderful faces and Peter's face in space. If you would like to support us financially, you can do so by buying our books, the Dusk Belt series on Amazon. We would like for those to be like monthly installations. So far, we're releasing about one a year, but you know, the copy editor is a bit slow of a reader. So,
or if you want to support us, you could send money in the form of gold bullion directly to Wesley's house. For the address, please email us at Those Muckrakers.
Email us. We will dox the fuck out of the real life Wesley Bone. You can send him gold bars or just boxes full of bees. That would also be funny.
Oh, before I forget, what would Wesley do about the house? I totally forgot about that.
Oh, oh, you're complaining about a little bit of trash that your house is sinking into. I'm gonna tell you, my house has been sinking into a trash pile for years. Keep telling Dad to stop throwing all of his trash out the back, because we're just gonna fall into it again. But no, he keeps doing it. So you want to complain about trash? Don't complain to me about trash. I've been dealing with this since I was 10 years old.
His neighborhood does look like the trash pit that this house was probably built on.
So, like, I don't think he would have any sympathies for these people whatsoever. It ain't so bad. Just live in the trash pit. Stop being so fussy.
They're so bougie. Bobby, anything to pitch?
Well, yeah, still doing that their YouTube's channel, Captain Bobbers Plays, CAPTBOBBERS Plays, PPLAYS. Yeah, doing a building up the city of Metroburg in city skylines. It's just real peaceful. It's just me building stuff. I had to rip out the whole this past week. I had to rip out the entire downtown and redo it twice because I'm a fucking moron. And yeah, but I got it fixed. It's working now. Traffic's really bad, so I might have to rip it out again. But yeah, it's coming along. So it is a socialist utopia, and death to anyone who says otherwise. Everything's going great in Bobistan. It's fine. Everything's fine.
And I have nothing to pitch other than, I guess, you know, check your houses for trash pits and Indian burial sites if you're buying from Dr. Horton. We're still gonna get
to Wesley.
If anybody ever listens to this, we're gonna get if anybody listens to this, we're gonna get like a cease and desist letter for mentioning that company's name.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Okay, I did not stop recording. I just stopped my video.
you like switched up where the cameras are.
You have to leave that in. I'm really sorry, but
there we go. All right, now
that was too funny of a picture.
Now good.